Greetings! It's time to take a look at another FPS roguelike. Now, hear me out before leaving. This one has quite a unique look to it, and it does not make me think of a disgusting mobile game when looking at the Steam page. Also, if you were to ask me why this game ended up on my wish list some time ago, I really couldn't tell you. I think it was likely recommended to me by a content creator during the demo. I, however, have never actually played the demo or have seen anything about this game so far. So this is a completely blind purchase. I feel like this is an important thing to point out. So first, we need to get into the biggest question. That is it worth the price? I usually don't spend excess money on video games, and I'm not a big fan of where prices have gone in the past few years. To put this into perspective, I always thought a $60 game was already way too expensive. Obviously, the more you push the price past 60, the more I am likely not interested in buying said game unless it's on a steep sale. I do like supporting indie devs, however, and my general range of video game prices lies somewhere in between $10 to $40. Everything that's in that range is totally fine as long as it gives me about a good 6 hours of entertainment. Does this game do that? Yes. At the time of writing this review, I've got my hands on most of the unlockable items and spent about 10 or so hours playing this game. I'm not done by a long shot. As with every roguelike, having all the items just means it's time to experiment with them in different runs. And to be honest, I've only used like half of the guns, even though I do own them all. So in short, yes, this game is worth the asking price. It will offer you the fun and enjoyment for at least 10 plus hours, probably even more. But then again, if you are truly unable to purchase this one at the current price of $20, just wait for a sale. It is never wrong to save some money. A quick PSA, apparently the game has issues with its own lobby browser. That one seems to crash quite often. Since I played this one solo, I did not touch the lobby browser at all, but if you would like to co-op with friends, perhaps for now, use the Steam invite feature instead. I am assuming that the developers are going to fix this issue pretty soon. On the topic of performance, it runs pretty well on my 27 mid-range PC, and it's pretty much always at a stable 120 frames per second. I experienced a few stutters at the very beginning, but since then it has been completely smooth sailing. For a new release, this one is very stable. Your mileage, however, may vary, so be sure to check in with the Steam discussions and other forums to see how other people's games run. I've seen a few complaints about crashes on Steam, so just a heads up. I personally had no issues. Any specific bugs and issues? Well, this section is pretty short too. The only bugs, quote-unquote bugs, I experienced were sometimes getting stuck for like a second after dashing into terrain, and I think a few times I did not take damage from certain attacks even though I was pretty sure that I got hit. Otherwise, no crashes, no bugs, no weird issues or glitches. Very, very smooth game. This game has a standard menu interface. All your options are here. You can customize the HUD and language just as expected. Even though my game, as you can see, seems to take certain menu elements and shows them in German, even though I changed the main language to English. That's nothing to be upset about though. The graphics options are also as you would expect. The game likely does detect your hardware and sets the graphics accordingly. Motion blur and depth of field are present, but can both be turned off. Thank God. The field of view can be set, very important, turn that one up. Audio options are pretty complete too, nothing special here. And there is the option for gamepad and full key rebindings. That's all for the menus and the options in this game. Very satisfactory, if I may say so. Nothing that is too out of the ordinary. But there are also no annoying settings that cannot be turned off at least. So let's move on to the most important and probably the most interesting thing, which is a gameplay and mechanics. As you might have expected, this game being a roguelike starts you off pretty bare bones with a basic weapon and skill. You get random chests and shrines in a run. Those give you upgrades and items. The basic skill shrines give you elemental abilities from fire to frost and even more esoteric things such as tentacles and darkness. Speccing into these abilities, you will gain more and more benefits if you commit to them. Every 3 upgrades will give you minor boosts. Every 6 upgrade will give you a major boost. These can be additional effects on top of your elements or very powerful additional buffs. Of course, there's also synergy effects between the different elements, but also the weapons and skills you can combine. Picking an upgrade commits you to that path. You can pick an upgrade for your primary fire, your secondary fire, and your ability. Once you are locked in, you will get upgrades to these 3 chosen elements. So at most, in one run, you can have up to 3 different elements in combination with each other. Pick an experiment to see what works. There are some very nice synergistic effects with certain weapons and skills and their respective elements. Also, each weapon and skill gets different percentage points on how they trigger or build up different effects. For example, big hits build faster, small and fast hits build slower. Basically, a fully automatic weapon builds elemental effects up in smaller increments, while a slow weapon or a slow skill builds it up faster. Basic balancing. The next item on your runs will be chests that contain things like money, additional skill upgrades, or even keys or character upgrades, aka spirit shards. Another important item are charms, basically equipable items. Those charms can be gained from encounters, bosses, and also chests. These give you certain character buffs, such as more damage when at full health, or double the loot, or better elemental effects. Charms can be destroyed with your melee button to gain some money, depending on the rarity of the charm. Now, if your first few runs seem a little bit empty, that is because a lot of additional shrines and upgrades are gained from committing spirit shards, the character upgrade material of this game. You have your own little hub area where all your upgrade stations are, for both weapons and skills, as well as this gigantic wheel which increases your character stats. Upgrades you can get, the shops, etc. Very much like a roguelite should do. Upgrading here means that you will now start encountering, for example, a merchant, weapon and skill upgrade stations, and fountains where you can offer health or money to get scammed. Yeah, come on man. I pretty much never donate my health. I do need that, thank you. Thank you very much, but no thanks. And the money one, well, has given me some cool stuff in a few runs. It's mostly keys, but it's still a scam. Just donate once and move on if it's a fail. The merchant is the place where you should spend that money, since there you can actually buy health upgrades, healing items, skill upgrades and charms. And no, you cannot hit the charms that the merchant sells with your melee in order to get money. Would be funny though if you could just do that and then the merchant boots you out of the room. That would be kind of funny. These merchants are not just accessible normally though. You need a key to open up the door because it is locked. And these keys are quite important in general. You can gain up to 2 at the start of each run with, as you would have guessed, a character upgrade. And you can use them on locked doors or chests. The locked door before each major boss will always have a merchant within them. So use these keys wisely. Keys can of course be gained back from chests or, donating money to the fountain. And a certain charm can make it so you don't even need any keys anymore, but that one is pretty rare. Now we talked about the baseline mechanics, onward to our character. We can kind of modify their looks a little bit, skins and emotes, gain from experience and certain challenges. Do that if you want to dress up your character a little bit. But more importantly is our health and the healing item. We start off with one syringe that heals us back to kind of almost full health, and we can gain more uses of those syringes through upgrades, up to 3. These syringes only regenerate if you either interact with a health shrine or you defeat an end boss. These health shrines are naturally added through the upgrade path to your character, and then they will appear in your subsequent runs. But every major boss you kill is also a full heal and syringe usage restore. In addition, elite enemies drop these blood orbs that heal you a little bit, and a white orb that increases your health maximum. These white orbs can also be gained from chests and other sources. Of course, also from major bosses. Also, certain skill upgrades give enemies just a generic chance to drop these items, which do include these health orbs, for example, or money. And another elemental upgrade even increases the gold you drop. Besides that, our character can also equip numerous weapons. You can only equip one per run, but you have the option, between multiple weapons. The important part here is, though, that every weapon has 3 upgrades to their secondary and primary fire. It completely changes how the weapon works. So the primary fire has 3 upgrades, the secondary fire has 3 upgrades. For example, the shotgun has a semi-auto mode, a full auto mode, and a slug shotgun mode. Additionally, the shotgun has a mod slot which has 3 different secondary fire modes that can be unlocked and used. Very important to note, this game has a lot of achievements. These achievements come from certain challenges, and those achievements, as you might have already suspected, give you access to these alternative firing modes, new weapons and new skills, aka, do a full run with the weapon, or do a specific type of kill, or damage multiple enemies in a specific way. That's those type of challenges basically. Weapons themselves are unlocked by challenges during a run, with a few exceptions. These are the shotgun and the Tesla rifle. Those are just kind of both rewarded after certain bosses. The rest is locked behind a few secrets and challenges. You get the fish by going back to a secret cave in the hub. You get the bow by beating Mr. Hands quickly. You get the plasma launcher by getting to the last area very quickly. You get the disc thrower by solving this riddle after the second major boss. And to be honest, I don't even know how I got the revolver. It kind of just showed up next to the weapon bench. So I don't really know how I got my hands on that one. All of these can theoretically be gained within a single run. But come on, that's unlikely to happen unless you watch a guide. Once you unlock that gun, you have it and you own it permanently, and you can go, experiment with it. Very importantly, the game does not drop guns or skills in a run. It is only ever equipped before you start a run. The same goes for skills. You unlock these by partially going to certain locked doors and opening them. That is why, the keys are that important. And the other skills are gained from, you already guessed it, achievements and secrets. One is just picked up at the start of the 3rd level through kind of just jumping to it. The other one requires a bunch of relics that you gather from enemies and bosses, so it's just kind of a time investment reward. These skills can be upgraded by using, the upgrade machines. Once you unlock their modifications. You unlock modifications by just getting kills with the respective skill. For example, you get a grenade, you get a turret, you get a vial of disgusting goop, and the mighty anchor. To be honest, that one is pretty fun. Feels pretty good dunking on people with the anchor, not gonna lie, that's a pretty cool weapon. All of these abilities, again, can also be upgraded, just as the weapons, with the elements I described earlier. And then there is your melee, which can destroy golden pots and pots in general, but besides the golden pots, they don't drop anything. And you can kind of just run through the pots instead of punching them. And of course, that melee skill gets an upgrade to execute enemies at low health. And yep, you guessed it, you get an achievement for executing certain enemies with your melee. Now, how does a run normally play out? There are 3 different biomes, each are basically levels, and they have 4 different stages each. 2 of these stages are just normal combat room encounters with maybe certain objectives such as destroying a thingy or standing next to a thingy or following a thingy, you know, the generic stuff. One stage always has an elite at the end, and the final stage is always a major boss and just the boss encounter. The only exception is the last area, which only has a rotating elite, and of course the final boss. You kill all enemies, you do the objectives, you move on to the next room. That is kind of how the flow of this game works in a very roundabout manner. Enemies vary between each biome, although there's not too much variety here. I think it's fine for what the game is trying to do. All enemies are at least unique to a biome and level. They're like bigger ones, basically small elite enemies, and then the generic fodder enemies. Then there are those very rare loot golems that will drop some, well, juicy loot if you kill them fast enough. The further you are in a specific area, the more dangerous all of the enemies will get. And then there are those elite and boss enemies to capstone the midpoint and the endpoint of each level. And I gotta say, some of these elites might push your shit in a little bit. These guys don't fuck around. Some of the bosses too. These guys get some Miyazaki level boss entry cutscenes. It's really cool. They got unique mechanics too, so beating them for the first time feels pretty rewarding. Piece by piece, you will eventually just kind of overcome all of them. Maybe a little tip for Mr. Hands here. I call him that because you gotta shoot his hands. Hopefully that helps some people who struggle against this dude. I definitely struggled against this guy for the first time. But yeah, his grid spot are his hands. It mostly comes down to dodging projectiles, dodging area effects. Very much like your arena shooter, your boomer shooter, your Doom-like game. At certain points in a level, you will be asked to, for example, not take any damage, or finish a certain part of a level in a certain amount of time to get extra loot. Now let's talk about the movement before I move on to the next topic. It is kind of as you would expect from a Doom clone arena shooter. You get your double jump, your dash forward, and then you can use certain tools to dodge and weave in order to survive. For example, you could use the shotgun blast, that can kind of work as an additional jump, therefore giving you sort of a triple jump effect if you want to use the shotgun like that. And once you have killed the final boss, you can also add extra difficulty modifications to subsequent runs, like the ones that I'm currently showing off on the screen. You know, there's a bunch of modifications you can add to run to make it more challenging for you. Now, onward to the aesthetics of the game. This game is a sort of a brain punk arena shooter with Aztec and Cthulhu influence and some Bioshock vibes thrown in there too. You're running around in a steampunk diving suit, shooting golems and constructs, fish and frog creatures, and lastly, undead and lich type enemies. And finally, you face a very much Aztec-inspired entity and a god, basically. The visual design of this game is pretty good. I want to praise it, especially since it deliberately did not go for the generic cartoon Marvel Rivals MOBA Overwatch style that so many games are doing nowadays. It looks pretty gritty and more realistic, while still kind of containing this otherworldly unique style. The weapon especially give me that feel, the steam rifle, the shotgun especially, that evokes the like locomotive design. It's kind of funny looking. And then the completely alien looking guns you unlock later. There's some really cool ideas in there. There's not too much variety in the different rooms though. You will see a lot of the same kind of stairway area and transitional parts. And the areas are kind of pretty samey. But runs don't take that long, so I hope players won't get too hung up about this. But the game could use a few more rooms. Enemies also look pretty neat, even though, again, as I already stated, there's not too much of a variety here either. For me though, it's not really a turn-off. Visually the game does communicate pretty well. Skills and AoEs are visually represented, even though the frog enemies have quite a lot of spherical AoE attacks, so you will be dodging a bunch of red spheres when you're in that area. Overall though, I've never felt cheaped out when I did get hit. And yes, of course it does take time to get used to the enemy's attacks. If you do go down to something, don't be mad about it. It's likely that you haven't figured out how to deal with that specific enemy. And that's it. Moving on to music and audio. The music in this game is also very nice. I was playing the soundtrack in the background for this entire review, so you got to experience what the game sounds like music-wise already. But yeah, the soundtrack for this game is quite apt for what it is trying to portray and show. It fits the atmosphere, the feel, the different biomes, enemies and bosses. The audio escape is also pretty good, the weapons sound nice, and as I already talked about, I especially like the sound of the mighty anchor when you bring it down on some fool's head. The rest of the enemies and environmental sounds are nice too. I did not experience anything out of place or a weapon that sounds kind of bland or bad. The only thing that I wish is, just with many other games too, the shotgun should sound a little bit more meaty. But that's about it. I have nothing more to add to the overall audio quality to this game. It's all very serviceable and good. Completely perfect. Now we can talk a little bit about the, well, story, question mark. Yeah, this game has maybe a sort of story, which I won't divulge here, because you can find a bunch of notes and diary entries, and once you beat the final boss you basically repeat a cycle, becoming the new god of this realm. It's a very basic for a game like this. It really does not need a deep story. It's all about the gameplay, so if you really want to read those diary entries, go ahead, but I don't think story is a really big selling point for this game. And that's kind of all what I wanted to say about this specific aspect. If you're somehow interested in the story of this game, it's there, kind of, but this is mostly just purely about gameplay. We can now talk about certain visual quality, fidelity of the game, and I do have to preface that I mostly do not care about graphics in games. I am not some sort of Unreal Engine 5 bootlicking graphics whore. It's all about style and the vibes. Art trumps everything. Style over quality. This game sure has art style and oozes that steampunk, Aztec, Doom, Lovecraftian vibe. And yes, it looks completely fine. The graphics are nice, you got a good amount of detail here. It's not state of the art, it's not Unreal Engine slop, which is good. Thank God it isn't. But it looks superb, I have no complaints. Again, if the style works out for the game, then the quality is kind of irrelevant. You just need to get the style down, and this game does it to a T. If you got a complaint about this game somehow not looking up to par, then you might want to take a good long look in the mirror and rethink your life choices that led you to such a stupid conclusion. Because saying this game looks bad, that would just be pretty moronic. This is pretty much all I want to say in terms of fidelity. It looks absolutely perfect, and we just don't need more than that. It looks good the way it is. In short, game good, game looks good. In conclusion, well, we got a cool brine punk arena shooter FPS with roguelike elements, a cool Lovecraftian and Aztec inspired art style, and some pretty nice progression, weapon choices, variety, and some pretty unique elemental effects. What else is there to say besides, go and play it, you doofus, why are you still here? Chop chop, get to it, and have some fun, come on, go 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 go. And with that, see you next time, boys, and thanks for watching.